That was so good. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Lynchburg. We are glad you are here. Whoever you are, whatever your beliefs, whatever your age, and whomever you love, you are welcome here. As we work together for justice, compassion, and peace, we also acknowledge with humility that our buildings sit on Monacan land. My name is Courtney Senna, and I am the Director of Lifespan Engagement for this congregation. If you are with us for the first time, we are glad you chose to be here this morning to participate in the service for this congregation we love. If you would like to receive our monthly newsletter and Friday email updates, please fill out the virtual visitor card found on our website at uulynchburg.org under Sunday Services, or fill out the yellow card found in the back of the chair in front of you and place it in the offering basket. Next Saturday, we have our board game and snack board potluck, so I hope you will all join us for that. We'll start around 5 p.m. And next Sunday, our Lynchburg Interfaith Minister Group is sponsoring a showing of Bad Faith, Christian Nationalism's Unholy War on Democracy. This will be held at Quaker Memorial Presbyterian Church at 7 p.m. on Sunday, May 19th. This is a documentary our minister group feels our members need to see. Please plan to attend, and childcare will be provided for this event. Now I invite us to release our worries about the world and our own lives as we enter into the service by taking some slow, calming breaths.
It's wonderful to be together here today. And Zoomies, we invite you to welcome everybody in the sanctuary. And roomies, let's welcome all the people on Zoom. It's great to be together today. And I invite the Zoomies to remember that our responsive reading that we have this morning is actually in the Friday e-news. So we're so glad to be together today. As Courtney lights the chalice of our faith, let us join together in our response. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, O Spirit of life. As our understanding of what it means to be a family evolves, we're coming to realize that the important task of mothering is often found in acts of nurturing offered by certainly mothers, but also caring fathers, our mothers of choice, and men who nurture others. Today, we celebrate mothers and all those who have nurtured us at times when our own mothers and families were unable to offer the love that we needed, the acceptance that we needed. And let us not forget friends, teachers, mentors, and relatives who have helped us learn to love ourselves and others. For all those whose hearts help sustain and love us all. In their honor and with gratitude for those who helped us arrive at this day, I invite us to rise in body or spirit to share hymn 1012 in the teal hymnal. Today, we take an offering of our gifts for the work of this community, both within this building and in the larger world. Nurturing the next generation is a sacred task. It does indeed take a village, or in our case, a community. For the most part in this country, we lack extended family networks that nurture parents as well as children. This makes our communities of choice all the more important. Children are always watching, listening, and learning, for better or worse. Parents, families, and communities help children learn the values, principles, and ethics they will need to act in the world. Sometimes we inadvertently teach lessons that have the potential to harm our children and the world. We're all worried about the divisions among people here in Lynchburg, in our nation, and in the world. How much of the division among people is perpetuated by adults? Children carry our words and actions into the future. We can sow prejudice as easily as we can sow compassion. On this Mother's Day, let us deeply consider the ways we may inadvertently nurture our children's worlds for ill rather than good. And may we have the courage to shift our thinking so that our children speak love, not hate, and act with compassion, not anger. And Courtney found a wonderful story for all of us that I'm excited to hear again. Could those who feel young at heart this morning come forward? Thank you. It's nice to see y'all this morning.
Hey. So our book this morning is called The Forgiveness Garden. It's by Laura Thompson. I really like this story. There was a valley, and through the valley ran a stream. The village of Vian stood on one side, and the village of Gomet stood on the other. There was no peace in the valley, for the two villages had hated each other for a long, long time. One day, a new argument sparked. Both villages claimed a certain part of the stream as their own. Angry words flew across the stream. Then stones. A Gomet boy named Karun picked up a large stone and hurled it across the water. A Vian girl named Sama stood where the stone fell. The stone hit Sama hard on the head, and she fell hard to the ground. The villagers of Vian ran to help. The villagers of Gomet cheered and ran away. The Vians called out for revenge. They were angry and they were afraid. Would the Gomet never stop fighting us? They gathered around Sama, admiring her courage and plotting their revenge against the Gomets.
Why did they hate each other?
It doesn't tell us what their initial fight was about, does it? As days passed, Sama's pain began to lessen, but her hatred of the Gomets grew. And in the village of Gomet, too, the people were angry, and they were afraid. Would the Vians fight us always? They gathered around Karun, praising his courage and scheming how to defend against the Vians. Karun secretly wondered how brave he had truly been, but his hatred for the Vians only grew.
If they wanted it to stop, why don't they just stop?
We'll see what happens in the story.
Yeah.
Keep that thought in your head.
One day, Sama walked along the stream, yearning for something to ease her aching, angry heart. She reached a calm pool and bent to drink. What she saw reflected there stopped her. She saw the ugly scar, but most of all, she saw her own dark, brooding scowl. Who have I cried? Who have I become? She cried. Sama wept for a long time. Then Sama looked across the stream. There, a few children from Gomet walked together. How scared and angry and sad they looked. Sama's heart softened. They are just like us, she thought. Suddenly, a few of Sama's own people ran up. Here you are, they shouted. The time for revenge has come. And they pulled her away to join the fight. Villagers from Viam and Gomet crowded the stream. The Viams held a captive. It was Karun, and they all held stones. A large stone was put into Sama's hands. It was the stone that Karun had thrown. Throw the stone at him, her people hissed. Throw it hard. Sama looked at all the villagers, those from Viam and those from Gomet. Their faces were like hers. They had been hardened with anger and fear and hate. Suddenly, Sama knew what she had to do. No, she said in a loud, clear voice. I won't hurt him. Let the boy go. Her people grumbled. Sama went on. It's time to stop the fighting, she said. We must stop hurting and hating. And she flung the large stone to the ground. Let us build a garden instead, she said. Now all of the people grumbled. Someone shouted, What kind of garden? Sama knew. A forgiveness garden. Some people gasped, some scoffed, some just laughed at her. But some from Viam murmured, If Sama wants it. They let Karun go. Then they piled their stones near Sama's. Some from Gomet saw this and murmured, It's worth a try? They added stones of their own. Only Karun hung back, scared and angry. Stone by stone, the people of the valley built a garden wall together, but they had questions. If we forgive, must we forget all that has happened? Asked the villagers of Viam. Sama answered, We will sit together in the garden and decide. Must we apologize? Asked the villagers of Comet. Will the Viams apologize?
Yes.
Sama answered, The garden will help us find what is right. Still Karun stayed apart, watching and thinking. Oh, look, how beautiful. Villagers set flowers into the soil and planted a tree. When the garden was complete, its loveliness made everyone smile. This garden is for all of us, Sama said. It can help us to put aside hate and learn what forgiveness feels like. Who will join me? At first, no one moved. No one dared. The two villages had hated each other for a long, long time. It was hard to try a new way. Then Karun, brave Karun, stepped forward. I will join you, he said to Sama. Sama of Viam and Karun of Gomet stepped into the garden together. They sat under the tree, and they began to talk. What do you think they said? What do you think they said?
Maybe like sorry, and I hope maybe we can be united.
Yeah, saying sorry and you hope that we can be united is probably a really good way to start. Anybody else have a thought?
No.
You think they said
Well,
sorry? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're probably right.
Sometimes it's really hard to apologize because we're embarrassed that we did something that hurt somebody. It takes a
can be
lot of
hard to say
courage to
sorry.
do things like that.
So now I'm going to invite you all to come back to the back of the sanctuary with me. We have some flowers that can represent our own ideas of forgiveness garden, and we're going to make some for everybody in the congregation, and then we can pass them out later. All right? So let's go back and we will work on that while they finish talking up here. Ready?
That's super cool.
They're going to be hard at work. I love that story of the forgiveness garden. And it offers us an important message of what can happen when we listen to our conscience. It takes courage to do the inner exploration, to move away from hate to forgiveness and peace, especially when change involves going against the norms of our family or community. That's not an easy task when we are taught to hold prejudice and hate as our mantra. When I was growing up, Mother's Day was all about flowers and cheery feelings, or the mother who had the most children, or the mother who had the youngest child. But we never talked about what happened behind closed doors. There was nothing about the origin of Mother's Day. And while Anna Jarvis is credited with founding Mother's Day, she learned the foundation of this holiday from her mother. Her mother worked with Julia Ward Howe, and she focused on social justice. This year in particular, I invite us to consider the origin of Mother's Day. I feel a deep solidarity with the mothers and orphans in Gaza, people suffering in Africa from drought or war, mothers and children trying to survive walking the Darien Gap in Panama. I've been at the edge of that jungle and know how brutal it can be. Can we ignore the plight of those nurturing the next generation? So I implore us to move away from the hallmark celebration of Mother's Day, no matter how much our mothers or nurturing mentors mean to us. I ask us to do this in order to return to the original proclamation of Mother's Day. You may know that Julia Ward Howe wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic as she watched soldiers march off to war. During the Civil War, she nursed and tended wounded soldiers and also helped widows and orphans. After the war, she continued helping victims. In 1870, she had had enough. She wrote the Mother's Day Proclamation calling on women of all nations to meet together so they might find a path away from war towards peace. The Peace Alliance calls us to return to the original intent of Mother's Day in this statement. While Mother's Day has presently lost much of its early edge for justice, it's important to note some of the underpinning intentions and recommit ourselves to its prescient calling. At a time when our country is again engaged in devastating and costly wars abroad, and many of our own communities are torn apart by violence, it's time for Mother's Day to return to its roots. In the spirit of Ward Howe's original call, this occasion can be a time to dedicate ourselves on behalf of mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers everywhere, to rise up and protect our most vulnerable by calling for our leaders to make a directional shift in the course of our nation. There is no more urgent need than addressing the devastation brought on by violence in all of its forms, affecting the lives of untold millions in our nation and around the world. Then we may finally see the carnage and devastation of violence and war fade into our own history. There could, of course, be no better way to honor our mothers and those who nurture us. So I invite us to join together in responsive reading 573. Written in 1870. Arise then, women of this day, as all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of fears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us, reeling with carnage, for caresses and loss. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained in theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder does not wipe out justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, or violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of counsel. Let them meet first as men to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as the means whereby the great human family can live in peace. And each bearing after her own time, the sacred in Christ, not of Caesar, but of God. It is our tradition to share together the joys and the concerns, spirit of. We hold up today the wonder and mystery of the world, the amazing diversity of nature and the creation of everything. We hold up today the responsibility that each of us has to nurture one another, especially the children, so that we can build a world that is worthy of their love and curiosity and need for love and compassion. Today, we think of those who are struggling in mind, body, or spirit, and those who are struggling physically because they lack the basic necessities of life. And we hold up our Mother Earth as she struggles to compensate for the destruction of humanity. We remember all those who are immigrants of climate change today, who are suffering because of droughts or floods. We are grateful to be alive, and may we nurture a world in which all people come to live love in our world. Amen. Blessed be. This is an important occasion for us all to focus on the kind of thoughts and actions we're nurturing in ourselves and especially our children. Every one of our actions carries a message and consequences. This week, I was reminded of a story that highlights how we need to live our ethics and beliefs in the world. Many of you remember, I don't know how many years ago, the Kenyan runner Abel Mutai, who was just a few feet from a finish line in a big race, but he became confused by the signage and he stopped thinking that he had gone over the finish line. A Spanish runner, Ivan Fernandez, was right behind him and realizing what had happened, started shouting at the Kenyan to continue running. But Matai didn't know Spanish and couldn't understand what he was saying. Realizing what was taking place, Fernandez pushed Matai to victory. A journalist asked Ivan, "Why did you do that?" Ivan replied, "My dream is that someday we can have a kind of community where we push and help each other to win." The journalist insisted, "But why did you let the Kenyan win?" Ivan replied, "I didn't let him win. He was going to win. The race was his." The journalist insisted again, "But you could have won." Ivan looked at him and replied, "But what would be the merit of my victory? What would be the honor in that medal? What would my mother think of that?" Values are passed from generation to generation. What values are we teaching our children? Let us not teach our children values based in greed or winning at all costs. Instead, let us pass on the beauty of love and relationships among the human family. Let that be our foundation. The beauty of offering a helping hand. Nurture honesty and ethics as the true act of winning. So I'm wondering if our young at hearts would like to help us remember how we can nurture life and forgiveness and love. How are y'all doing, Courtney, back there? Yay! Let us choose to nurture the young by allowing them to observe our actions. May we nurture a clear mind and a compassionate heart. Each of us has the capacity to nurture and mother ourselves, our loved ones, and the world. So, would y'all like to come share? We have the foundations of our own love and forgiveness gardens. They've been hard at work. Still needs one. Yes, it needs one. You know what? This one looks like it's not very happy. We want to give her a happy one.
That's a happy one.
Yeah, that's a happy one. Thank you. That's lovely. Does Michael have one in the back? Yay, he needs one. So now that our hands are full, let us stand and share together hymn 129, Let Love Continue Long.
Thank you for the flowers and for all those who plant gardens of forgiveness and love and hope. Let us share together the extinguishing of our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. It's time to say goodbye. I'm sorry that we can't send wonderful flowers through the airwaves. We live in a beautiful part of the country, so we love y'all. We love y'all. So our final blessing is from the Reverend Victoria Weinstein. Dear Mother, Father, God of us all, grant us life-giving ways, strength for birthing and a nurturing spirit, that we may take attentive care of our world, our communities, and those precious beings entrusted to us by biology, or destiny, or by friendship, fellowship, or fate. Give us the heart of a mother. Amen. Blessed be.